Hi everybody, welcome to computerhandle.com. So in previous few lectures, we have discussed how can we use the logic building mindset to develop programs on flowchart. All right, and we already discussed something called decision maker box. Well, now in this video, we'll have a more formal introduction to the selection statements, the decision maker thing, and we're gonna now, from this lecture onwards, we're going to expand our knowledge towards the more concepts of the flowchart, and then we're gonna conclude the chapter by doing some practice questions. All right, so let's get started with selection. So selection is the process of choosing one path or the other. So let's suppose we've got multiple paths. So it's up to the program to choose, depending on the conditions, either to go through this path or through this path. All right, if you want to set up multiple paths in a 2-point junction, you can set it up like this, like so. So you still have this little 2-point junction, either if or else. Two options only. If else you go here, if else you go here. And this is what we call the if else statements. All right. Then we've also got some case statements, and these are for ones if you just want multiple conditions under one single junction. All right, and this can look something like this. With multiple conditions, you can keep it on and increase the number till whenever you have to, and it can, depending on the value of the variable which comes from here, or depending on the condition, you'll go either on one of the paths. Well, here you'll just have an option of 2. All right, and if you want to set multiple options, this is the way you're going to set it in the if else statement. But on the case statements, you can set just one junction like this. All right, and the symbol, flowchart symbol for, of course, the selection is the diamond. All right, now let's have each of these in detail. All right, so let's start with if else statements. So in an if else statement, when you have to input a variable or input any process into a decision box, you either will have the yes part or the no part, and eventually before end you'll join both of them together depending on what really the process is. But under the case statements, you've got one little variable. All right, and then you're going to write inside case of the variable in which the value will vary upon. So let's suppose the path will be chosen upon the value of x. So case of x, and you're going to write multiple paths like so, and we're going to write 1 here, which means that if x is 1, it's going to take this path. If it's 2, it's going to take this path. If it's 3, it's going to take this path. If it's 4, it's going to take this path, and so on. And if none of them are true, then we have another one which we call otherwise. All right, the otherwise path. Otherwise do this. So let's suppose that you have to enter a variable in a range, and it's going to check it for you. All right, this place. If it doesn't match up with any one of the numbers you've set up here, so it's going to proceed on to the otherwise, and it's going to tell you, the program, that you've entered an invalid number. All right, and this is how case statement works. Now let's have a look at an example for each and every one of these. All right, so for the if else, we've already done one example in the past, the 18 years driving license, but we're going to do one more here, and that's going to be the basketball game. All right, what we mean is that in basketball, we'll assume that the minimum height required for a basketball player is 6 feet. All right, and anybody lower than that is going to be rejected the offer to enter the basketball team. All right, and we have to create a program to tell the user whether you're eligible for the basketball or not, depending on their height. So we're going to start with start. All right, and then we're going to proceed to input x, which will be the variable. The user will input the height. All right, input x, and then we're going to say is x, and then we're going to compare the value of x to the 6 feet of threshold that we've set up. All right, so if x, let's suppose, is greater than equal to 6. All right, now one thing to remember, if you want to write greater than equal to, you can't write this in a computer. Instead, in computer science, we use this sign. All right, this is something we will have a look at there in the future, but just for now, you can remember that we write greater than equal to like this. All right, so x is greater than, if x is greater than equal to 6, we're going to have a yes path and a no path. All right, I'll create a yes one here instead and a no one here. And now is x greater than 6? So if x is not greater than 6, we're going to say output rejected. All right, and rejected is a form of string, so we're going to have a double colon here. And same here, but this time we're going to say accepted. All right, and then we're going to end the program like so. But before, of course, we end it, we have to join this path right here. And now time for the shapes. We've got the circle and oval here. Then we've got the, of course, the decision diamond right here. And then we've got the input and output here, which is, of course, going to be the parallelogram. Here we go. And here we go. This is an example for if-else statement. And we've created a similar program in the past, but this was just to recap on what if-else really is. All right, and we'll not call this thing decision box or the decision maker. All right, but we'll call this a selection box. All right, a selection statement in the form if-else. And if it's in this form, of course, then we're gonna call it in the case form. All right, now let's have a look at an example for the case statements as well. All right, so let's have a look at an example for the case statement here. So the scenario we're gonna build up right now. Let's assume that you want to have 4 color pencils. All right, you are to have 4 pencils. All right, just 4 pencils, let's assume. And what we'll say to the program is that it will ask the user how many pencils you have left. All right, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be even 4, or it could even be none. All right, we will ask the user how many pencils they have left, and the program will then tell the user how many pencils he needs to buy more in order to get the same 4 value. All right, we can do this mathematically as well, but we'll do this the case statement way here. All right, so let's put the pencils aside and get to the program designing part. So we'll say start. All right, and then we'll say input x. All right, and this input x is actually the variable will contain the number of pencils the user already has. And here we will make a case statement, and this time I'm going to draw the diamond beforehand so that they aren't oddly shaped later in the future. All right, and I'm going to write case of x. All right, and now I'm going to draw multiple paths for the case of x part. All right, so if x is equal to 1, we will say output you need 3 more. All right, I'm just writing need 3 more. If it's 2, I'm going to say output need 2 more. All right, if it's 3, I'm going to say output need 1 more. All right, if it's 0, I'm going to say the order in which we write this doesn't really matter. All right, so if it's 0, so we'll say output need 4 more, of course. All right, and if we already have 4, we'll say output no need for more. All right, and then if any else number is inputted rather than these, so we'll say otherwise error. All right, we will say output error, and of course we'll have this in a string. And of course the shape we'll have in all of this are the parallelograms, and of course on the input as well. All right, and once we've created this, we can just say end here, and then we can create one big line from the very top output box down here, and all now remains for us to do is to join these remaining ones on the same line. All right, now let's drive in this program for once. Let's suppose that I input the number 3. Oh, we forgot this here. All right, so let's suppose we input the number 3. All right, so case of 3, we're going to go to this part. It's going to tell me we need 1 more pencil. All right, and it's going to end the program right there. If I input 6, it's going to say error, because You only need 4 pencils as said by the criteria of the question. You can't have more than 4 pencils. All right, and that's why we'll output error. And so this is an example for case statements often dealt and often used to handle situations with multiple conditions, whereas if-else statements are only used to handle situations with only 2 conditions. All right, and only 2 possibilities, whereas this has multiple possibilities. Now, one thing to keep in mind: you can create the same scenario, or you can actually solve the same question using the if-else statements. But the way it's gonna work is you're gonna check for one path, all right? And if no, you're gonna check for the other. If no, you're gonna check for the other. If no, you're gonna check for the other, and it really gets lengthy. The program itself really gets lengthy. So the better way is to just create a case diamond and create multiple conditions for it and an otherwise condition, like so. All right, so it is up to you to determine which one you need to use depending on the scenario. All right, so in the previous scenario we had to use because we had only 2 possibilities, we could use the if-else statements. All right, but if we only had we had multiple possible scenarios, we had multiple possibilities, and for that reason we will use the case statements. All right, so if we have to have a scenario where we have to have multiple opportunities, or you can say multiple values of any variable called x for one path or for one possibility in a case statement. So the way you represent that is, for example, we have to have multiple possibilities 1 to 10, all right? So we're gonna say from values 1 to 10, and we're gonna have our processes right here. Then if we have a different process for values 11 to 20, we'll say 11 to 20 here. So if it's 7, it's gonna go here. If it's 9, it's still gonna go here. All right, it's case of any variable, let's be x. All right, and let's suppose we add another range, but this time let's shorten up the range from 21 to 25. So if I drive in this program, all right, and let's say I input the value x, and let's say the x is 3. It's gonna go here and perform process number 1. All right, I'll nickname these 1, 2, 3. All right, if I go ahead and set the value to be 7, it's gonna perform the same process, which will be 1, because it's within the range of 1 to 10. But if I enter the value 13, then it's not gonna go here, but it's gonna go here. All right, and so this range, any value of x in between 1 to 10 will take this path. If it's any value between 11 and 20, it will take this path. Any value between 21 to 25, it'll take this path. Otherwise, of course, it'll take the otherwise path. All right, so that's one thing you should keep remember.